The memorial flames cast dancing shadows across the crystalline walls of the Jirani Imperial Palace. 10 years. 10 years since Princess Kyla had fallen in the Battle of the Crimson Nebula. And still, Queen Jera stood before her daughter's memorial statue, wings folded in eternal grief. "Your Majesty," a voice interrupted the silence. Guard Captain Theron approached, his forearms crossed in formal salute. "We have an unusual situation at the border." Jera's luminescent eyes didn't leave the statue. "Handle it, Captain. Today is not a day for—" "A human warship has landed, Your Majesty, unauthorized, and—" Theron hesitated. Something he never did. "The pilot claims to have Princess Kayla with him." The temperature in the chamber dropped 20 degrees. Jera's wings spread wide, each feather-like appendage crackling with bioluminescent energy. "What did you say?" "The genetic scanners confirm it, Your Majesty. It's her. Princess Kayla is alive." The journey to the border station took 3 hours by royal shuttle, but Jera barely noticed. Her mind raced with possibilities, each more impossible than the last. Kayla had died. She'd seen the footage, felt the psychic echo of her daughter's final moments through their familial bond. The entire empire had mourned. The human ship sat like a scarred beast on landing platform 9. It was ugly even by human standards, a patchwork of salvaged parts and jury-rigged weapons that somehow held together through sheer stubbornness. Very human, Jera thought bitterly. A crowd had gathered despite security's attempts to maintain order. Word traveled fast in the border colonies. The lost princess, returned from the dead, brought back by a human, of all things. The ship's ramp lowered with a hydraulic hiss. First came the human tall for his species, wearing battered combat armor that had seen too many battles. His face bore scars that told stories of survival against odds that would have killed most beings. Dark hair, graying at the temples, eyes that held a soldier's wariness. Then she appeared. Kayla stepped into the light, and the crowd gasped as one. It was her, the same ethereal beauty, the same royal bearing, but changed. Her once pristine wings bore scars. Her eyes, once bright with idealism, now held shadows. She wore simple combat fatigues instead of royal garments, and moved with a fighter's economy rather than a princess's grace. "Mother," Kayla said, her voice carrying across the platform. Jera couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Her daughter stood 20 meters away, alive, real, impossible. "Your Majesty." The human spoke, his accent rough but understandable. "Name's Mason Hale. I know this is a shock, but we need to talk, privately. There are things you need to do." Silence. Archon Vel emerged from the security detail, his ancient features twisted in suspicion. The Queen's most trusted advisor pointed a gnarled finger at Mason. "You dare bring this deception before Her Majesty guards. Arrest this human immediately." Mason's hand moved to his sidearm, not drawing, just resting there. A soldier's reflex. "I'd think real careful about that, Archon. You might not like what comes next." "Is that a threat?" Vel's voice dripped venom. "It's a promise." Kayla stepped forward, placing herself between Mason and the guards. "And you do well to remember who you're speaking to, Vel." The Archon's expression flickered surprise, maybe fear, quickly masked. "Princess Kayla died 10 years ago. I don't know what game you're playing, human, but—" "Enough." Jera finally found her voice. She moved forward, each step measured, controlled. The crowd parted like water. She stopped before her daughter, reaching out with one trembling hand to touch Kayla's face. The psychic connection blazed to life, familiar, yet different. Like a favorite song played in a minor key. It was her. Despite everything, despite the impossibility, this was her daughter. "How?" Jera whispered. Kayla caught her mother's hand, holding it gently. It's a long story, Mother. One that certain members of your council won't want told. Behind them, more figures emerged from the ship. A motley collection of beings, of Raxian exile with cybernetic implants. A pair of sequence twins that flickered in and out of phase. And others that Jera couldn't immediately identify. Refugees, outcasts, the lost and forgotten of a dozen worlds. Your Majesty. Mason spoke again, more respectfully this time. Your daughter saved my life. More than once. I'm returning the favor by bringing her home. But she's right. There are things you need to know. Things about that last battle. About why she disappeared. Lies, Vel hissed. Your Majesty, this is clearly a human plot to... I said enough. Jera's voice carried the weight of absolute command. My daughter will explain herself. In private, Captain Theron, prepare the secure chamber. Archon Vel, summon the full council for emergency session in 6 hours. But Your Majesty... That is all, Archon. Vel bowed stiffly and withdrew, but not before shooting Mason a look that promised violence. The secure chamber was a relic from the old war's walls, lined with psychic dampeners. No windows, no recording devices. Just a room where truth could be spoken, without fear of interception. Jera sat across from her daughter, studying every change, every scar. Mason stood by the door, alert but not threatening. Just a soldier doing his job. Start from the beginning, Jera commanded. Kayla took a breath. The Battle of the Crimson Nebula wasn't what you were told. We didn't lose because we were outmaneuvered. We lost because we were betrayed. That's impossible. I reviewed every report. Reports written by the survivors. Reports edited by the Council. Reports that left out one crucial detail. I discovered evidence of a conspiracy within our own government. Someone was selling our military movements to the hegemony. Jera's wings rustled, a sign of agitation. You're saying? I'm saying I was targeted. Mother. Not by our enemies, but by our own people. When I tried to warn you, my communications were jammed. When I tried to return, my ship was sabotaged. I would have died in that nebula if Mason hadn't found me. I was running salvage, Mason added, his voice gruff. Dangerous work in contested space, but it paid well. Found her ship drifting. Life support failing. Almost didn't investigate Zerani, and humans weren't exactly friendly back then. What changed your mind? Jera asked. Mason shrugged. She was dying. I'm many things, Your Majesty. But I don't leave people to die in the void. Not even enemies. He saved me, Kayla continued. Nursed me back to health despite having every reason to hate my kind. We were at war. Remember, his government would have paid handsomely for a Zerani princess, dead or alive. So why didn't you? Jera directed the question at Mason. The human was quiet for a moment. Because she saved me first. 2 weeks after I pulled her from that wreck, we were ambushed by hegemony raiders. I was hit bad, gut shot with a plasma rifle. Should have died, but your daughter... He shook his head. She could have run. Could have taken my ship and left me to die. Instead, she stayed. Used some kind of healing technique I still don't understand. Burned out half her own life force, keeping me alive until we reached a medical station. After that, Kayla picked up the story. We couldn't exactly go our separate ways. I couldn't return home. Whoever wanted me dead would just try again. Mason couldn't go back to human space. He'd been branded a deserter for saving an enemy's life. So we became partners, mercenaries, protectors of those the great empires forgot. She gestured toward the door. Those people with us, they're just a fraction of those we've helped over the years. Colonies abandoned by their governments, refugees from wars nobody remembers. The lost and broken who just needed someone to give a damn. Jera leaned back, processing this information. And now, why return now? Because the conspiracy didn't die with my disappearance, Kayla said. If anything, it's grown stronger. The same signatures I found 10 years ago are appearing again. Someone in your council is planning something big. Mother. Something that will destroy the Empire from within. That's a serious accusation. It's not an accusation, Mason interjected. It's a fact. We've been tracking this for 3 years. Following money trails. Intercepting communications. Your daughter didn't want to come back, she was happy with our life. But when innocent people start dying, well... He looked at Kayla with something that might have been admiration. She's still a princess at heart. Still believes in protecting those who can't protect themselves. Even if it means facing those who tried to kill her, Kayla added softly. Jera stood, pacing to the wall and back. The council will not accept this easily, especially Vel. He's been my rock these past 10 years, helping me through the grief. Vel, Kayla interrupted, was the last person to see me before the battle. Vel was the one who changed my mission parameters at the last minute. Vel was the one who assured you those reports were accurate. The implications hung in the air like a poison. You're suggesting my most trusted advisor orchestrated your death? I'm suggesting, Kayla said carefully, that you look very closely at who benefited from my disappearance, who gained power, who pushed for more aggressive policies, who turned our measured responses into total war. Jera's wings drooped. In her grief, she'd leaned heavily on Vel's counsel, had given him unprecedented authority. If Kyla was right. What do you need? She asked finally. Time, Kayla replied. Protection for my people. And Mason needs diplomatic immunity. There are those who would use his past against us. Done. Jera moved to the door, then paused. This reunion, it's not what I imagined. For 10 years, I dreamed of having you back. But this conspiracy, betrayal, the suggestion that your death was orchestrated by those I trust, I know. Kayla rose and embraced her mother. I'm sorry it has to be this way. But the daughter you lost died in that nebula. Mother, I'm what survived. And what survived learned that sometimes the greatest threats come from within. The council meets in 4 hours now, Jera said. Be ready. If Vel is what you claim, he won't go down without a fight. That's what I'm counting on, Mason muttered. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Kayla touched Mason's arm. Thank you for standing with me. Always, he replied simply. And in that single word, Jera heard a story 10 years of partnership, of trust built in fire and tested in battle. Her daughter had found something in this scarred human warrior that she'd never found in the glittering halls of the palace. Maybe that was what survival looked like. Not just living through disaster, but finding those who would stand with you when the universe turned dark. The council meeting would be a bloodbath of words and accusations. But for now, in this moment, a mother had her daughter back, changed, scarred, but alive. And with her stood a human warrior who'd chosen love over profit, loyalty over logic. The universe, Jera reflected, still held surprises, even if they came wrapped in impossibility and delivered by the last person you'd expect. The Imperial Council chamber hadn't seen such tension in decades. Representatives from every major house and colony had been summoned, their holographic forms flickering in designated spots around the massive circular table. At the center, Queen Jera sat on her throne, wings folded regally. To her right stood Kayla, no longer in combat fatigues, but wearing a simple dress that somehow made her scars more prominent. To her left, Mason Hale stood at attention, having traded his armor for a diplomatic uniform that fit him like a cage. Archon Vel entered last, his forearms carrying data tablets, and his expression carefully neutral. But Mason caught the slight tremor in his lower left hand, the way his eyes avoided Kayla's direct gaze. The old alien was nervous. Esteemed counselors, Jera began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Today marks a miracle. My daughter, Princess Kayla, has returned to us after 10 years. The reaction was immediate and divided. Half the council erupted in celebration, while the other half remained suspiciously silent. Mason filed away faces, noting who seemed genuinely surprised and who looked like they'd swallowed something bitter. This is indeed joyous. Councillor Yarrick spoke first. Her elderly features creased in what might have been a smile. But I must ask, where has the princess been? Why did she not return sooner? An excellent question, Vel interjected smoothly. One we all deserve answered, along with why she returns in the company of a human mercenary, wanted for war crimes. Mason felt Kayla tense beside him, but kept his own expression neutral. They'd expected this. I was recovering from injuries sustained in the Battle of Crimson Nebula, Kayla said, her voice steady. Injuries inflicted not by our enemies, but by sabotage within our own ranks. The silence that followed was deafening. That's a serious accusation, child. Counselor Dex leaned forward, his scales shifting to a darker hue. Do you have proof? I have this. Kayla produced a data crystal, holding it up for all to see. Navigation logs from my fighter, showing last-minute course corrections that put me directly in the path of an ambush. Corrections authorized by someone in this room. Logs can be forged, Vel said dismissively, especially after 10 years, and by a human who... I didn't touch the logs, Mason interrupted, his voice cutting through the chamber. I wouldn't know how. Your tech is about as intuitive as a drunken Vraxian. Several counselors made sounds of offended dignity, but Mason continued. What I do know is combat. I've been in enough battles to recognize an ambush when I see one. Your princess wasn't caught by bad luck or enemy intelligence. She was served up on a platter. You dare, Counselor Hex began, but Jera raised a hand for silence. Let him speak, she commanded. This human saved my daughter's life. He has earned the right to be heard. Mason stepped forward, feeling the weight of dozens of alien eyes upon him. You want to know what I see when I look at this room, Fear? Half of you are terrified she's really back. The other half are scared of what that means. But here's the thing about fear, it makes people stupid. Makes them show their hand. He turned slowly, addressing the entire council. In the past 6 hours since we landed, there have been 4 attempts to access our ship's computers, 2 tries at hacking the princess's medical records, and 1 really pathetic effort to plant evidence in my quarters. Someone in this room is very worried about what we know. Baseless paranoia, Vel scoffed. Your Majesty, surely we're not going to listen to the ravings of a human criminal. Criminal, Mason laughed, a harsh sound in the formal chamber. That's rich coming from you. Archon, tell me, how much did your personal wealth increase after the princess's supposed death? How many military contracts went to your house's companies? Vel's skin flushed purple, a sign of rage among his species. How dare you? Financial records, Kayla interrupted, producing another data crystal, showing massive transfers to shell companies owned by several council members, starting just days after my disappearance. Someone profited from the expanded war that followed my death. The war was necessary. Counselor Hex slammed a fist on the table. The humans had grown too bold. The humans were scapegoats, Mason said flatly. Easy enemies to unite your people against while someone lined their pockets with military spending. Enough, Vel stood, all 4 arms spread wide. Your Majesty, this is exactly what the humans want. To sow discord, to turn us against each other. This person claims to have saved the princess. But what if he's the one who's been manipulating her? 10 years is a long time. Long enough to break someone, to rebuild them as a weapon against their own people. Mason felt the mood in the room shift. Vel was good. He'd give him that, playing on their fears, their prejudices. You think I brainwashed her? Mason asked. Fine. Test her. You've got psychics, truth-seers, whatever you call them. Put her through every test you've got. Hell, put me through them too. I've got nothing to hide." "An excellent suggestion," Jera said before Vel could object. "Counselor Yarix, you oversee the Truth Seeker Guild. Can you arrange an immediate verification?" The elderly counselor nodded. "It will take an hour to prepare, but yes, it can be done." "In the meantime," Kayla spoke up, "perhaps the council would like to hear about the 43 colonial worlds that have gone dark in the past 5 years. The ones whose distress calls were ignored because they weren't strategically important." "Colonial administration is not the purpose of this gathering," Vel said quickly. Too quickly. "Isn't it?" Kayla moved to the center of the room, every inch the princess despite her scars. "When I was young, my mother taught me that our empire's strength came from every world, every citizen, that we were guardians, not just rulers. But something changed while I was gone. We became an empire that only values the core worlds, that treats the frontier as expendable." "The frontier colonies knew the risks," Counselor Dex said. "Resources are limited. Resources that somehow multiply when there's a military contract involved." Mason observed. "Funny how there's always money for weapons, but never for colony shields or medical supplies." "What would a human know of Imperial resource management?" Hex sneered. "More than you'd think," Mason replied. "See, humans might be newcomers to the galactic scene, but we've got a long history of watching empires fall. They all think they're different, special, eternal. They all rot the same way from the inside out." The chamber erupted in angry voices, counselors shouting over each other. Jera let it continue for a moment before standing, her wings spreading to their full impressive span. Silence. The command rippled through the chamber with psychic force, compelling obedience. "We will have order," she continued. "Counselor Yarix, begin your preparations. The rest of you will remain here. No one leaves until we have answers." "Your Majesty," Vel began, but she cut him off with a gesture. "Especially you, old friend. If my daughter's accusations are false, you have nothing to fear from the truth." The next hour was tense. Mason found himself under guard, polite guard, but guard nonetheless. He didn't mind. It gave him time to observe, to watch the intricate dance of alien politics. Kayla moved through the room like a ghost from the past, speaking quietly with counselors who had known her before, reminding them of who she'd been. But she wasn't that idealistic princess anymore, and they knew it. The scars told one story, but the way she moved, the way she assessed threats and exits that told another. She'd become a survivor, a warrior, like him. "Fascinating, isn't it?" a voice said beside him. Mason turned to find a young Jirani watching him with curious eyes. Seeing how quickly they forget their loyalty when faced with uncomfortable truths. "And you are?" "Saren, Palace Guard. Well, was Palace Guard. I've been reassigned 3 times in the past year for asking inconvenient questions." She studied him with interest. "Is it true what they say about humans, that you're insane enough to fight, even when you know you'll lose?" Mason shrugged. "We prefer to call it determined. But yeah, we're stubborn bastards." "Good," Saren said quietly. "The princess will need that. The truth seekers are honest, but their findings can be interpreted creatively by those in power." Before Mason could respond, the chamber doors opened. 3 truth seekers entered, ancient beings, wrapped in ceremonial robes, their eyes milky white from decades of seeing beyond the physical. "We are ready," the lead truth seeker announced. Kayla stepped forward without hesitation. The truth seekers surrounded her, their hands hovering inches from her body as they began their work. The chamber held its breath. Mason had seen a lot of strange things in his years among the stars, but watching the truth seekers work ranked near the top. Light seemed to bend around them, reality rippling like water. Kayla stood perfectly still, but he could see the strain in her shoulders, the way her fists clenched. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the lead truth seeker stepped back. "This is Princess Kayla," she announced. "Her mind is her own, unbroken and unmanipulated. Her memories of betrayal are true. She was targeted by those she trusted." The council erupted again, but the truth seeker wasn't finished. "There is more. The human Mason Hale test him as well." Mason stepped forward, trying not to show his nervousness. He'd undergone interrogation before, but this was different. This went deeper than words or pain. The truth seeker's touch was like ice in his mind, rifling through memories he'd rather forget. The war, the betrayals, the moment he'd found Kayla's dying ship, the months of recovery, teaching each other to survive, the partnership that had become something more. When they finally released him, Mason stumbled. Kayla caught his arm, steadying him. "This human speaks truth," the lead truth seeker announced. "His mind shows no deception, no hidden agenda. But there is something else, something unexpected." She turned to face Vel directly. "His memories show you, Archon, meeting with unknown figures, exchanging data crystals, planning something that required the princess's death." "Impossible," Vel backed away. "The human's memories could be. We see what was, not what is claimed." The truth seeker cut him off. "And we see more. Recent memories. Communications with the same unknown figures. Plans within plans. A word that echoes through his subconscious thoughts. Revolution." The chamber went deadly silent. "Not revolution," another voice spoke from the shadows. "Evolution." Everyone turned as a figure stepped into the light. Rex Mansouri, Mason's old squad mate, wearing the uniform of Vel's personal guard. Rex, Mason, couldn't hide his shock. "What the hell are you doing here?" "My job," Rex replied simply. "Same as always, following orders, making sure the mission succeeds." "You son of a—" "Mason, don't." Rex held up a hand. "You always were too emotional. It's why you never made it past Sergeant. Some of us see the bigger picture." "What bigger picture?" Kayla demanded. Rex smiled, a cold expression that Mason had never seen on his friend's face. "The one where humanity takes its rightful place in the galaxy, not as servants or second-class citizens, but as equals, or betters." Understanding dawned horribly in Mason's mind. "You're working with them. Have been all along." "Since before we met," Rex confirmed. "Every mission, every job, all leading to this moment. The Jirani Empire is dying. Mason, has been for centuries. We're just helping natural selection along. By murdering innocents. By choosing the winning side," Rex corrected. "Something you never learned to do." Vel had been backing toward the exit during this exchange, but suddenly found his way blocked by Saren and two other guards. "Going somewhere, Archon?" Saren asked pleasantly. "This is madness," Vel sputtered. "You're going to believe humans over your own kind." "The truth seekers have spoken," Jera said, her voice deadly quiet. "Saren, arrest the Archon, Rex Mansouri. You are likewise under arrest for conspiracy and treason." Rex laughed. "Arrest me, Your Majesty. You still don't understand. This isn't about me or Vel. This is about inevitability. The old empires are crumbling. Humanity is rising. You can either adapt or be swept aside." "Like you tried to sweep aside my daughter." Jera's wings crackled with energy. "That was Vel's idea." Rex shrugged. "Too messy for my taste, but effective. Or it would have been if Mason here hadn't played hero." "Why?" Mason asked, genuinely puzzled. "We were brothers, Rex. We saved each other's lives a dozen times." "And every time?" "I was calculating the odds," Rex replied. "Weighing your value against the mission. You finally became more liability than asset when you went soft. Started caring about alien refugees. But don't worry, your sacrifice will mean something. The data we've gathered, the weaknesses we've found, Humanity will remember you as a useful fool. Mason moved before anyone could stop him. Not to attack Rex was expecting that. Instead, he pulled the emergency beacon from his belt and activated it. "What are you?" Rex began. "Calling in a debt," Mason said simply. "See, the thing about saving people's lives is they tend to remember. All those refugees, those forgotten colonies we helped. They're listening, and they're coming." The first confirmation came within seconds, a message on the chamber's main screen from a Vraxian battle group. Then, another from the Sequence Twins phase ships. Then dozens more, from every corner of the frontier. "You brought an army to our capital," Vel shrieked. "No," Kayla said, understanding dawning on her face. "He brought witnesses. They're not here to fight. They're here to watch, to make sure the truth isn't buried again." Rex's confident expression finally cracked. "You clever bastard." "Learned from the best," Mason replied. "You taught me to always have a backup plan. Just forgot to mention what happens when people actually give a damn about each other." The council chamber's screens filled with incoming transmission ships from 40 different species, all converging on the capital. Not an invasion fleet, but a gathering of those the Empire had forgotten. "Your Majesty," one transmission broke through, a scarred Vraxian captain appearing on screen. "We're here to witness. The human Mason and Princess Kayla saved my colony from slavers 2 years ago. We stand ready to speak truth before the galaxy." More messages followed, each telling a similar story. Lives saved, colonies protected, hope restored by a human soldier and an alien princess who'd chosen compassion over politics. "This changes nothing," Vel spat, but his voice lacked conviction. "It changes everything," Jera corrected. "Guards, take them away. Full interrogation protocols. I want every conspirator identified." As Vel and Rex were dragged away, Rex caught Mason's eye one last time. "This isn't over," he promised. "Humanity's destiny can be whatever we choose." Mason interrupted. "That's what you never understood, Rex. It's not about human or alien. It's about choosing to be better than our worst impulses." The chamber slowly emptied as counselors filed out, many looking shaken. The comfortable corruption they'd ignored for years had been dragged into the light, and the reckoning would be painful. Finally, only Jera, Kayla, Mason, and Saren remained. "Well," Jera said eventually, "that was illuminating." "It's just the beginning," Kayla warned. Vel and Rex were pieces in a larger game. There are more conspirators, more plans in motion. "Then we'd better get to work," Saren said. "With your permission, Your Majesty, I'd like to assemble a team. Guards who ask inconvenient questions, investigators who won't take bribes. If we're cleaning house, let's do it properly." Jera nodded slowly. "Do it, Kayla. I'm reinstating your royal status and military rank, Mason Hale. I'm granting you full diplomatic immunity and citizenship in the Jirani Empire, if you'll accept it." Mason glanced at Kayla, who gave him a small smile. "Beats being a wanted criminal," he said. "But I've got conditions." "Name them." "Those ships out there, the forgotten colonies. They get a voice in whatever comes next. No more treating the frontier as expendable." "Agreed." "And Rex, when you interrogate him, I want to be there." Jera studied him carefully. "That's not standard." "Nothing about this is standard," Mason pointed out. "He played me for years, used our friendship as cover. I need to know why. Need to understand how I missed it." "Very well. Anything else?" Mason looked around the empty chamber, at the seats of power that had hidden so much corruption. "Yeah. When this is over, when we've cleaned out the rot, don't just go back to business as usual. Real change, not just shuffling the deck chairs." "You presume much for a human," Jera observed, but there was no hostility in it. "He presumes exactly enough," Kayla said, taking Mason's hand. "Mother, The Empire nearly killed me to preserve its power. If we're going to survive what's coming, we need to be better. All of us." Jera was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. "Then we'd better begin. Saren, start with the military command structure. I suspect Vel's corruption runs deep there. Kayla, I need you to coordinate with the arriving ships. Let them know they're welcome, but keep them calm. The last thing we need is panic in the capital." "And me?" Mason asked. "You, Mason Hale, are going to help me understand how a human mercenary saw what my entire council missed. And perhaps," she paused, studying him, "perhaps help me understand what my daughter has become in her years away." As they filed out of the chamber, Kayla squeezed Mason's hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "For the beacon, for the backup plan, for everything." "Partners, remember," he replied. "Though I gotta say, your family politics make a firefight look relaxing." She laughed, a sound that echoed through the ancient halls. "Just wait until you meet my aunt. She makes Mother look flexible." "Can't wait," Mason muttered, but he was smiling. The revolution Rex had spoken of was real, but not in the way he'd imagined. Change was coming to the Jirani Empire, brought not by conquest or conspiracy, but by the simple act of remembering those who'd been forgotten. And at the center of it all, a human soldier who'd chosen compassion over orders, and an alien princess who'd learned that sometimes the best way to serve your people is to walk away from power until you're worthy of it. The real work was just beginning. The interrogation chamber was a study in advanced psychology and ancient tradition. Walls that shifted color based on the subject's emotional state, gravity that could be adjusted to induce discomfort, and most unnervingly, a complete absence of corners, everything curved, leaving nowhere for the mind to rest. Rex Mansouri sat in the center, unrestrained but unable to leave the containment field. He looked smaller than Mason remembered, or maybe betrayal just had a way of diminishing people. "You look like hell," Rex observed as Mason entered with Saren and Kayla. "Yeah, well, finding out your best friend has been playing you for a decade will do that," Mason replied, taking a seat across from him. "How long, Rex, really?" Rex leaned back, studying the curved ceiling. "Would you believe me if I said it started as patriotism?" "Try me." "The Helix program," Rex said finally. "Remember that—" Mason's blood ran cold. The Helix program, humanity's Black Ops initiative during the war. Soldiers augmented with alien DNA, trained to infiltrate enemy societies. It had been shut down after the peace accords, deemed too dangerous and unethical. "You were Helix." "We both were supposed to be," Rex corrected. "You were selected too." Mason. Top scores in adaptability. Combat ratings through the roof. But then you went and developed a conscience. "The Marrow Station incident," Mason said quietly. 300 enemy civilians. Rex nodded. "Command wanted them eliminated to send a message. You refused. Got yourself court-martialed. Dishonorably discharged. Me, I followed orders. Got myself recruited into something bigger." Kayla leaned forward. "What happened at Marrow Station?" Mason didn't look at her. "Jirani refugee camp. Intelligence said they were harboring military assets. They weren't. Just families trying to survive. Command didn't care, wanted to use them as leverage." "And you walked away from your entire career to protect enemies," Rex said. "That's when I knew you'd never understand the bigger picture." "Enlighten me," Mason said flatly. Rex's expression shifted, becoming almost evangelical. "Humanity has been playing catch-up since first contact. Every other species had centuries, millennia of spacefaring civilization. We had decades. Do you know what our projected survival rate was in the galactic community?" "Don't care." 18%, Rex continued anyway. "Within 100 years, humans would either be absorbed, enslaved, or extinct. Unless we adapted. Unless we took control of our own evolution. By infiltrating other governments? By learning," Rex corrected. The Jirani have biological immortality. The Vraxians have hive mind capabilities. The sequence can phase between dimensions. Every species has advantages we lack. The program wasn't about conquest. It was about survival. Funny how survival looks a lot like assassination and conspiracy, Kayla observed. Rex turned to her, and for the first time, Mason saw genuine emotion in his eyes. You were never supposed to die, Princess. That was Vel's addition to the plan. We needed you alive. Needed your genetic markers for the next phase. Your death set us back years. The next phase, Saren asked, her hand moving instinctively to her weapon. Integration, Rex said simply. Willing or not, humanity needs to evolve. We've already begun. Volunteers in the outer colonies, testing hybrid genetics. Some of your own people, Princess, have been quite eager to participate. You're talking about genocide, Mason said quietly. Erasing what makes us human. I'm talking about survival. Rex slammed his hand on the table. You've been out there, Mason. You've seen what's coming. The hegemony was just the beginning. There are things in the dark between stars. Civilizations that make the Jirani Empire look like children playing with toys. Humanity as we are now, we're food, prey, unless we become predators ourselves. The room's walls shifted to a deep red, responding to the intensity of emotion. Is that what you tell yourself? Mason asked. That murdering innocence is evolution. The Belkan colony, Rex said suddenly. Year ago, you and the princess saved them from raiders. Except they weren't raiders, were they? They were hegemony scouts. Advanced force for something bigger. Mason and Kayla exchanged glances. They had wondered about the unusual equipment those raiders carried. We intercepted their communications, Rex continued. The hegemony isn't gone, just regrouping. They'll be back within 5 years, maybe less. And this time, they won't stop at border worlds. So your solution is to destroy the Empire from within, Kayla demanded. Transform it, Rex corrected. Make it stronger. Unite human adaptability with alien advantages. Create something that can actually survive what's coming. Under human leadership, of course, Saren observed dryly. Rex shrugged. We're newcomers. Less bound by tradition, more willing to change. It's not about supremacy, it's about flexibility. Mason stood abruptly, pacing to the curved wall. Memories flooded back missions with Rex, times the man had saved his life. Had it all been calculation, manipulation? The Tycho job, he said suddenly. When those smugglers had me pinned, you came back for me. You were still useful, Rex replied, but something flickered in his eyes. The Maelstrom Nebula, you took a plasma bolt meant for me. Reflex, Rex said, but his voice was less certain. Last year, Kovac Station. You could have completed your mission, but you stopped to help me save those kids. Rex was quiet for a long moment. Even monsters have moments of weakness. No. Mason turned to face him. Monsters don't have moments of weakness. People do. Somewhere in all your evolution rhetoric and survival statistics, there's still the man who taught me to field strip a rifle blindfolded. The man who got drunk and cried about his sister after the siege of Titan. That man is still in there. That man is exactly why humanity needs to change, Rex said, but his voice lacked conviction. Sentiment, emotion, weakness. Strength, Kayla corrected softly. The same strength that made Mason save me instead of collecting a bounty. The same strength that brings 40 different species here to bear witness. Your program sees diversity as something to be conquered and absorbed. We see it as something to be celebrated and protected. Pretty words, Rex muttered. They won't stop a hegemony battle fleet. No, Mason agreed. But unity might. Real unity. Not your forced evolution. You want to know the difference between us, Rex. You see other species as resources to be harvested. I see them as people to be protected. That's why your program will fail. You can't build lasting strength on a foundation of betrayal." Rex laughed bitterly. "Still naive after all these years? Fine. When the hegemony returns and your precious unity crumbles, remember this conversation. Remember that I tried to prepare us." "Where are the other program operatives?" Saren asked, bringing the interrogation back to practical matters. "Everywhere," Rex replied. "And nowhere. We learned from the best independent cells. No central command. Cut one head off." He shrugged. "Names," Kayla demanded. "Locations, plans." "I'll trade," Rex said. "Full immunity and—" "No deals," Mason interrupted. "You'll talk because somewhere in that augmented brain of yours, you know this is wrong. You'll talk because the Rex Mansouri I knew wouldn't let innocents die for a theory." "The Rex Mansouri you knew never existed," Rex snarled. "Then, why did you hesitate at Kovac Station?" Mason pressed. "Why save those kids when your mission parameters said to let them die?" Rex's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. "Because I'm weak. Is that what you want to hear? Because every augmentation, every psychological conditioning session, every loyalty test, none of it could completely erase what I was happy now." "Getting there," Mason said. "Keep talking." The next 3 hours were exhausting. Rex revealed names, locations, safe houses. The program's reach was extensive but not absolute. They'd focused on military and intelligence positions, leaving civilian government largely untouched. It was a cancer, but an operable one. "There's something else," Rex said as the interrogation wound down. "Something Vel didn't know about. The program has a failsafe. If we're compromised, if the operation fails, they'll trigger it." "What kind of failsafe?" Saren demanded. "The hybrid colonies I mentioned. They're not just experiments. They're carriers. A biological agent that targets specific genetic markers, harmless to humans and hybrids, fatal to pure-strain aliens within weeks." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "A plague," Kayla whispered. "You created a plague." "We created survival insurance," Rex corrected. "But yes, a plague." "How do we stop it?" Mason asked. "You don't," Rex said simply. "Once triggered, it's self-sustaining. The only way to prevent it is to stop the trigger signal from being sent." "Where's the trigger?" Rex smiled sadly. "That's the beautiful part. There isn't one trigger. Every program operative has the ability. Kill us all. And it activates automatically. Leave even one free, and they can activate it manually. Checkmate." Mason felt rage building in his chest. "You son of a—" "I told you," Rex interrupted. "I tried to prepare us. You just never asked what I was preparing for." Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Saren's communicator crackled to life. "Captain, we have a situation. Multiple ships just dropped out of hyperspace. Configuration unknown, but they're not responding to hails." "Hegemony?" Saren asked. "Negative. These are different. Energy signatures we've never seen before." Rex's face went pale. "No. They're early. They're 5 years early." "Who?" Mason demanded. "The reason for everything," Rex whispered. "The Devourers. The species the hegemony was running from. The real threat I've been trying to prepare us for." The interrogation room's displays flickered to life, showing tactical data from orbit. 12 ships of impossible geometry hung in space, their surfaces seeming to twist reality around them. "Those aren't ships," Kayla breathed. "They're alive." "Bioships," Rex confirmed. "The Devourers don't build technology. They grow it, evolve it, and they consume everything else to fuel that evolution." "How do we fight them?" Saren asked. "You don't," Rex said. "You run, you hide, or you become something they can't consume. Those were the only options. That's why the program—" "Shut up," Mason interrupted. "Just shut up. Saren, we need to get to the command center. Kayla, can you reach your mother? Already trying, Kayla said, her expression focused. She's in emergency session. The fleet is mobilizing. It won't be enough, Rex said quietly. Nothing we have will be enough. Mason turned back to his former friend. Then, I guess it's a good thing we've got 40 different species worth of refugees and outcasts in orbit. People who've survived impossible odds before. You're delusional if you think... No, Mason interrupted. I'm hopeful. Something you forgot how to be... Guards. Get him to a secured cell. Maximum containment. We'll need him alive if we're going to stop this plague threat. As they left the interrogation chamber, Mason caught Rex's arm. For what it's worth, he said quietly. I'm sorry it came to this. Rex looked at him for a long moment. So am I. More than you know. The command center was chaos when they arrived. Tactical displays showed the Devourer ships holding position just outside the system's defensive perimeter. They hadn't attacked, hadn't communicated. They just waited. Status report, Kayla demanded as they entered. 12 contacts. Biosignatures confirmed. A technician reported. They appeared simultaneously at different points around the system. No hyperspace signatures detected. They just materialized. Defense fleet status? 60% deployed. More launching every minute. But Princess... The technician hesitated. Our weapons aren't locking on. It's like the ships don't fully exist in our dimensional space. Queen Zera materialized as a hologram in the center of the room. Kayla, I need you and Mason at the palace immediately. If these are the creatures Rex spoke of, we need his intelligence. On our way, Kayla confirmed. As they raced through the corridors, Mason's mind churned. The Devourers, bioships, a plague threatening every alien species. Rex's betrayal suddenly made a terrible kind of sense, even if his methods were abhorrent. Mason, Kayla said quietly, what if Rex is right? What if we can't stop them? Then we die trying, Mason replied. But I've got a feeling about this. These Devourers picked a hell of a time to show up right when we've got representatives from across the galaxy here. Right when we're united. Even if it's just by circumstance. You think that's coincidence? I think, Mason said carefully, that maybe someone wanted us united when they arrived. Maybe someone's been playing a longer game than even Rex realized. They reached the transport pad, Saren close behind. As they prepared to beam to the palace, one of the displays caught Mason's eye. The refugee ships the Forgotten Colonies were moving, not fleeing, but forming up into defensive positions around the capital. Sir, a communication tech called out. Message from the refugee fleet. They're offering to integrate their defenses with ours. Mason smiled grimly. Tell them yes. Tell them all yes. If we're going to face the apocalypse, let's do it together. As the transport beam engulfed them, Mason had one last thought. Rex had been right about one thing humanity needed to evolve. But not through theft and betrayal. Through cooperation. Through unity. Through choosing to stand together when standing alone would be so much easier. The real war, the unsaid war Rex had tried to prepare for in all the wrong ways was about to begin. And for the first time in years, Mason felt ready for it. Not because he was strong, not because he had all the answers, but because he wasn't facing it alone. The transport beam deposited them in the palace's war room, where Queen Zera stood surrounded by military commanders and advisors. Her expression was grim, but determined. Report, she commanded. The Devourers are real, Kayla said. Rex's intelligence suggests they're beyond conventional warfare. But we have advantages he didn't consider. Such as... us, Mason said simply. All of us. Human stubbornness. Zerani wisdom. Vraxian hive coordination. Sequence phase capabilities. Every species brings something unique. Rex thought we needed to steal those advantages. Maybe We just need to share them. Poetic, one commander scoffed. But poetry won't stop bioships. No, Mason agreed. But unity might. How long until the full fleet is ready? 6 hours for full deployment, another commander reported. Then we have 6 hours to turn a refugee flotilla into the most diverse defense force the galaxy has ever seen. Mason said. 6 hours to prove that diversity isn't weakness, it's our greatest strength. Queen Jera studied him for a long moment. You're proposing to trust the fate of our empire to outcasts and refugees. I'm proposing, Mason said, to trust the fate of our galaxy to people who've already survived the impossible. People who know what it's like to be forgotten, discarded, written off. People who kept fighting anyway. Mother, Kayla added softly. The old ways failed. Vel's corruption, the program's extremism, they're symptoms of a dying system. Maybe it's time for something new. Jera closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, decision crystallized in their depths. Do it, she commanded. Full integration authorization, every ship, every species, every advantage we can muster. If we're going to face extinction, we face it as one. The war room erupted into activity. Orders flew, communications crackled between ships, and slowly, impossibly, order emerged from chaos. Mason watched it unfold, feeling something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Rex had been wrong. Evolution wasn't about taking from others. It was about growing together, becoming more than the sum of your parts. The Devourers were about to learn what happened when you threatened a galaxy that had finally learned to stand united. The unsaid war had begun. The Unity Conference Hall had been hastily converted from a ceremonial space to a tactical command center. Representatives from 43 species crowded around holographic displays, their diverse forms creating a tapestry of galactic civilization. At the center, Queen Jera presided over what might be the most important gathering in the Empire's history. The Devourers have maintained position for 18 hours, Admiral Kresh reported, his Vraxian compound eyes focusing on multiple data streams simultaneously. No movement, no communication attempts. They're waiting. For what? Asked Captain Talara of the Sequence twins, her form flickering between dimensional states. For us to make the first mistake, Mason said from his position near the tactical display. He'd spent the night studying every scrap of data Rex had provided about the Devourers. According to the intelligence, they're analyzers. They wait, watch, learn their prey's capabilities before striking. Then we deny them that advantage, suggested Commander Yorick, representing the Crystalline Collective. Strike first, hard and fast. With weapons that can't lock onto them, Saren countered. That's exactly what they want to see, our full capabilities without risk. Kayla stood beside the main display, her scarred wings catching the light. We need a different approach. Mason, tell them about the Kovac Station incident. Mason stepped forward, feeling the weight of dozens of alien gazes. Year ago, Rex and I encountered something similar, not Devourers, but a probe that phased between dimensions. Traditional weapons were useless, but we found a weakness. Which was, Queen Jera prompted. Biological interface, Mason explained. The probe couldn't fully phase while interacting with living tissue. It had to partially materialize to analyze organic matter. We used that let it grab one of us, while the other planted charges. You're suggesting we use ourselves as bait? Admiral Kresh's tone suggested what he thought of that idea. I'm suggesting the Devourers might have the same limitation, Mason corrected. They're bioships. They consume and evolve. To do that, they need to interact with their prey physically. It's a theory, Dr. Hallex interjected. The Jirani scientist had been analyzing the sensor data non-stop. But the energy patterns support it. The ships are maintaining a partial phase state existing simultaneously in multiple dimensions. It requires enormous power. Power they'll have to redirect if they want to actually attack us, Kayla added, which gives us a window. A very small window, Dr. Hallex cautioned. Microseconds at best. Then we'd better make them count, Mason said. But first, we need to deal with the other threat, the plague. The room's atmosphere shifted. Everyone knew about Rex's failsafe, a biological weapon that would activate if the program operatives were eliminated. My people have been working on that. A new voice spoke. Everyone turned as a figure entered humanoid, but clearly augmented, with visible cybernetic enhancements. Dr. Sarah Cross, formerly of the Helix program. Weapons appeared in dozens of hands, but Cross raised her own empty and placating. I'm here under flag of truce. Some of us never agreed with Rex's extremism. We've been working to counter the plague protocols. Why should we trust you? Saren demanded, her weapon trained on Cross's head. Because in approximately 36 hours, one of Rex's automated systems will trigger the plague regardless of what happens to the operatives. Cross replied calmly, I can stop it, but I need access to your quantum computers and biological synthesis labs. This could be another trap, someone muttered. Everything could be a trap, Mason said. But right now, she's offering to help. That's more than we had 5 minutes ago. Queen Jera studied Cross intently. Submit to Truth Seeker examination. If you pass, you'll have our resources. Agreed, Cross said without hesitation. As Cross was led away for examination, the discussion returned to the Devourers. Ideas flew, some brilliant, some desperate, most somewhere between. What about the refugees? Asked Captain Morak, whose freighter had been saved by Mason and Kayla years ago. We're not military, but we know about survival. Maybe that's what we need, not battle tactics, but survival instincts. Elaborate, Zara commanded. Morak's scarred face creased in thought. The Devourers consume civilizations. Yes. Well, we've all survived consumption of different kinds. Pirates, slavers, corrupt governments. We learn to hide, to misdirect, to make ourselves not worth the effort. You're suggesting we hide from cosmic predators, Admiral Kresh scoffed. I'm suggesting we make ourselves indigestible, Morak corrected. Every species here has survival tricks. Combine them. Maybe we create something even Devourers can't swallow. The discussion continued for hours. Plans formed, were discarded, reformed. Through it all. Mason watched Kayla work bridging gaps between species, translating not just languages, but concepts. She'd learned more than survival in their years together. She'd learned connection. Mason, she said during a brief break, walk with me. They found a quiet observation deck, the Devourer ships visible as twisted shadows against the stars. Are you afraid? She asked. Terrified, Mason admitted. But not of dying, of failing, of Rex being right and this unity thing being naive hope. It's not naive, Kayla said firmly. I've seen what unity can do. We've seen it. Every life we saved, every colony we protected, it was never just us. It was people choosing to help each other despite differences. Pretty sure the Devourers won't be impressed by our philosophical stance. Kayla smiled a real smile, not the diplomatic one she wore in public. Maybe not, but I'm impressed. A bitter human soldier who'd lost everything chose to save an enemy princess. That single act of compassion created ripples that brought us here. To face impossible odds against cosmic horrors. To face them together, she corrected. That makes all the difference. Before Mason could respond, alarms blared. They ran back to find the command center in controlled chaos. The Devourers are moving, Admiral Kresh reported. 3 ships, approaching the outer defense perimeter. On the display, the bioships writhed forward, their surfaces constantly shifting like living skin. Where they passed, space itself seemed to recoil. Defense fleet, prepare to engage, Jera commanded. All civilian vessels, fall back to... No, Morak interrupted. Your Majesty, Let us help. We propose something different. This is not the time. With respect, this is exactly the time, Morak insisted. The refugees will form the first line, not to fight, but to confuse. Every species uses their unique abilities: sequence phasing, Vraxian hive scattering, human unpredictability. Make the devourers work for every analysis. That's suicide, Saren protested. That's survival, Morak countered. We've been doing it our whole lives. Let us do what we do best, be impossible to pin down. Mason saw the logic immediately. He's right. Military formations are predictable. But refugees, we're chaos incarnate. No patterns to analyze. No standard tactics to counter. And while they're trying to figure us out, Kayla added, understanding dawning, the real fleet prepares the actual strike. Jera looked between them, then at the approaching devourers. Do it. Morak, coordinate with Admiral Kresh. Whatever insane plan you have, implement it now. What followed was the strangest battle in recorded history. The refugee fleet scattered like startled birds, each ship moving according to its species' instincts. Sequence vessels, phased in and out of reality. Vraxian ships split into smaller components, reformed, split again. Human vessels flew patterns that defied logic: barrel rolls for no reason, sudden stops, random weapon discharges at empty space. The devourers paused, their bioships writhing in what might have been confusion. They'd expected military precision, not orchestrated chaos. It's working, Dr. Hallex reported. Their energy patterns are fluctuating. They're trying to analyze but can't establish baselines. Now, Zara commanded, strike force, engage. The military fleet emerged from behind the refugee screen, weapons charging. But instead of standard formations, they'd integrated refugee tactics: Jirani ships, using human evasion patterns. Vraxian vessels employing sequence phase techniques. The first volley missed entirely as the devourers shifted dimensions. The second came closer. The third. Contact, someone shouted. Port bioship took damage. Minor, but we touched it. How? Mason demanded. Cross-species weapon harmonics, Dr. Hallex explained rapidly. When a Vraxian pulse cannon fired through a sequence phase field, it created a resonance that partially pierced dimensional barriers. Then do it again. All ships, coordinate fire through phase fields. The battle escalated. The devourers, no longer content to observe, began their attack. Tentacles of living energy lashed out from their ships, seeking prey. Where they touched, matter simply ceased, not destroyed, but absorbed, converted, made part of the devourer biomass. The horizon's hope is caught, someone screamed. Mason watched in horror as a refugee vessel one they'd saved years ago was enveloped by devourer tentacles. But instead of being consumed, the ship exploded in brilliant light. Antimatter self-destruct, Morak reported grimly. If we're going to die, we die on our terms, and we take pieces of them with us. The explosion had indeed damaged the devourer ship, leaving scorched sections that didn't regenerate immediately. They can be hurt, Kresh said with something like hope. They can be killed. At the cost of our own, Jera noted heavily. A cost we choose to pay. Another refugee captain interrupted. Your Majesty, we're not soldiers, but we are survivors. And sometimes, survival means ensuring others live, even if we don't. The battle raged for hours. Ships died consumed or self-destructed. But each loss taught the Alliance something new. The devourers weren't invincible. They had patterns, preferences, limitations. Dr. Cross was cleared by the Truth Seekers. Saren reported during a brief lull. She's working on the plague cure. Says she needs genetic samples from every species present. Do it, Zara commanded. Whatever she needs. Mason found himself coordinating between refugee captains and military commanders, translating human intuition into actionable tactics. Beside him, Kayla did the same for other species, her years of experience bridging cultural gaps paying off. Mason, Rex's voice crackled over a secured channel. I know you're listening. Mason gestured for quiet, putting the channel on speaker. Rex, the Devourers are testing you. This isn't their real force, it's a probe. When they return, it'll be with hundreds of ships, not dozens. Your point. Let me help. I know their patterns better than anyone. I've studied them for decades. From your cell. From my cell, Rex confirmed. But Mason, the program had contingencies, ways to fight them we never shared. Let me help, and I'll give them to you. Kayla shook her head, but Mason held up a hand. What's the catch? No catch. Just, I want to see humanity survive, even if it's your way instead of mine. Stand by. Mason muted the channel. Thoughts? It's a trap, Saren said immediately. Maybe, Kayla said slowly. But he sounded different. Scared, Mason identified. He sounded scared. I've never heard Rex scared before. Before they could decide, new alarms blared. The remaining Devourer ships were retreating, but long-range sensors showed why. Jump signatures detected, a technician reported, voice shaking. Multiple contacts incoming. Estimate over 200 bioships. The command center fell silent. 200. The combined fleet had barely survived against 3. How long? Jera asked quietly. 6 hours at their current speed. 6 hours until extinction. Get Rex up here, Mason decided. Full restraints, constant guard, but get him here. We need every advantage. Mason, Kayla began. I know, he cut her off. I know it's probably a trap, but right now, we're out of options. Either we trust the devil we know, or we die pure and stupid. As Rex was brought to the command center, still in restraints, Dr. Cross burst in. I found it, she announced. The plague cure. But there's a problem. Of course there is, Mason muttered. The cure requires a specific genetic catalyst. Something to bind the antibodies across species lines. She paused. It requires hybrid genetic material. Someone who's been exposed to multiple species' DNA. Understanding dawned horribly. Program operatives. Yes, but not just any operative. The cure needs someone who's been enhanced with at least 5 different species' genetics. In this room, that's me, Rex finished quietly. It's me. The irony was thick enough to cut. The man who'd created the plague was the key to stopping it. There's more, Cross continued reluctantly. The process will burn out the hybrid genetics. The subject will survive, but they'll revert to baseline human. No more enhancements, no more advantages. Do it, Rex said without hesitation. Everyone stared. Rex Mansouri, who'd sacrificed everything for human evolution, volunteering to become merely human again. Rex, Mason started. 200 ships. Mason, even with my intel, our chances are minimal. But if I'm going to die, I'd rather die human. The man you used to know, not the monster I became. This could be another manipulation, Saren warned. Test me, Rex challenged. Truth seekers, telepaths, whatever you have. Test me now. As Rex was subjected to examination, the fleet prepared desperately for the coming assault. Ships were repaired, weapons modified based on battle data, strategies refined. He's sincere, the lead truth seeker announced. His desire to help is genuine, born from fear of extinction and regret, deep regret. Then do it, Jera commanded. Dr. Cross, begin the procedure. Rex Mansouri, understand that this earns you no forgiveness. Only a chance to partially correct your wrongs. Understood, Rex said. Mason, there's a data chip in my cell. Everything the program learned about the Devourers. Use it. As Rex was led away for the procedure, Mason retrieved the chip. The data was extensive decades of research, analysis, theoretical weapons designs. This is incredible, Dr. Hallex breathed. With this, we might actually have a chance. Slim, but real. How slim? Kayla asked. Perhaps 1 in 20. Better than 0, Mason said. Let's get to work. The next hours blurred together. Ships were retrofitted with hybrid weapons. Tactics were refined based on Rex's intelligence. The plague cure was synthesized and distributed, removing that threat. And through it all, the Devourer fleet drew closer. Mason. Kayla found him during a brief break. Whatever happens next, I want you to know choosing to save me that day was the best decision you ever made. Not because of all this, but because it led to us. To what we built together. Getting sentimental on me, Princess. Getting honest, she corrected. If we die in 4 hours, I want to die with truth between us. I love you, Mason Hale. Not as a princess loves a subject. Not as a partner loves a colleague. As a woman loves a man who showed her that strength isn't about power. It's about choice. Mason pulled her close. I love you too. Have for years. Just figured a scarred human merc didn't get to love alien royalty. This scarred alien royalty loves him back, she whispered. They held each other for a moment, drawing strength from connection. Around them, the alliance prepared for war, not the clean war of nation against nation, but the messy, desperate war of survival against annihilation. Ready? Mason asked finally. No, Kayla admitted. But that's never stopped us before. They returned to the command center to find Rex back, looking haggard but determined. The procedure had worked. He was fully human again. No trace of enhancement. How does it feel? Mason asked. Weak, Rex admitted. Fragile. Human. He managed a bitter smile. Exactly what I spent 20 years trying not to be. Any second thoughts about the intel? No. The Devourers can be beaten. They're apex predators. But even apex predators have weaknesses. They've never faced coordinated resistance from multiple species. Their evolution is reactive. They adapt to what they consume. But if we hit them with everything at once, every species' unique weapons and tactics, they can't adapt fast enough, Kayla finished. Exactly. It'll be chaos, but controlled chaos. Our chaos. 5 minutes to contact, someone announced. The Alliance fleet formed up military vessels interspersed with refugee ships, each knowing their role. At the center, the command ship waited, Queen Jera at the helm. All vessels, this is Queen Jera. Her voice carried across the fleet. Today, we face extinction, but we face it as one. Human and Jirani, Vraxian and Sequence, Crystalline and a dozen others. Today, there are no aliens among us. Only people. Only family. Fight well. Die better. And if we survive, let this be the foundation of something new. Something stronger than any empire. Unity through diversity. Strength through compassion. Evolution through cooperation. Poetic, Rex murmured. Shut up, Mason told him, but without heat. Just tell us how to kill these things. The Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace, like a wave of nightmares. 200 bioships, each writhing with hungry life. They paused, perhaps surprised by the organized resistance. All ships, Admiral Kresh commanded. Implement scatter pattern Omega. Make them work for every kill. The battle began. It was chaos. But as Rex had said, controlled chaos. Ships dove and weaved, fired and fled, died and destroyed. The Devourers, faced with dozens of different attack patterns simultaneously, struggled to adapt. Their tentacles lashed out, but found unexpected resistance shields, modulated with sequence phase technology. Weapons charged with Vraxian hive mind coordination. Human pilots flying patterns that defied prediction. It's working, someone shouted. They're taking damage. Indeed. Devourer ships showed scorch marks, wounded sections that regenerated slowly. But for every bioship damaged, 3 Alliance vessels died. At this rate, we'll run out of ships before they do, Saren observed grimly. Then we changed the rate, Mason said. Rex, that data mentions something about their core consciousness. Each bioship has one, right? A neural cluster, Rex confirmed. But it's buried deep, protected by biological armor that has to solidify when threatened. Mason finished. Which means for a split second, it's fully in our dimension. Targetable. You'd need surgical precision. One shot, perfectly timed. Good thing we've got the best shot in the galaxy. Mason looked at Kayla. Remember the Nexus station job, that impossible shot through 3 closing blast doors? Kayla's eyes widened in understanding. You want me to snipe the cores? While they're distracted by everything else, yes. That's insane. That's Thursday for us. Kayla laughed, despite everything. Get me to a sniper position. I'll need the best rifle we have and someone to spot dimensional phase shifts. I'll spot, Rex volunteered. I know their patterns better than anyone. Mason hesitated, then nodded. Do it. As Kayla and Rex headed for the sniper nest, the battle raged on. More ships died, but the Devourers were slowing, their adaptation struggling to keep pace with the variety of attacks. Mason, Zara's hologram appeared. We're detecting something else. Energy buildup in the Devourer fleet. They're preparing for something big. On the display, the bioships began moving in concert, forming a complex pattern. They're linking, Dr. Halleck said, horror in her voice. Creating a collective organism. If they complete that formation. How long? 10 minutes, maybe less. Then we hit them now. Everything we've got. The order went out. Every ship, every weapon, every desperate gambit unleashed at once. Space itself seemed to burn as the Alliance threw everything at the forming collective. Through it all, Mason coordinated, Rex spotted, and Kayla fired. One core, then another, then more. Bioships writhed and died as their consciousness centers were destroyed. But it wasn't enough. The collective was forming, its combined tentacles reaching out with inevitable hunger. I have an idea, Rex said suddenly. But you're not going to like it. We're about to be eaten by a space monster, Mason pointed out. Try me. Ram them. The command ship, full of antimatter, right into their collective center. It'll disrupt the formation. Maybe destroy it entirely. That's suicide. Yes, Rex agreed. Which is why I should pilot it. My last act as a human being. Maybe my first act as one in 20 years. Rex, no arguments. Mason, this is what I trained for. What I sacrificed everything for. Let me save humanity my way. The right way this time. Mason wanted to argue, but the collective was nearly complete. Its hunger palpable across space. I'll need volunteers, Rex said. It's a one-way trip. You've got them, Morak's voice crackled over comms. 3 refugee ships, ready to make the run with you. We know about one-way trips. And us, another voice added. More refugee captains, volunteering for death. Get to the command ship, Zara ordered. Take whatever antimatter we can spare. And thank you, all of you. As Rex prepared for his final run, Mason found himself beside Kayla, still sniping cores with mechanical precision. He's really gonna do it, she said between shots. Yeah, turns out there was still some of the old Rex in there after all. Mason, Rex's voice came over private comms. Take care of humanity for me. Your way. The right way. I will, Rex. I forgive you. A pause. Thank you. For what it's worth. You were the best friend I ever had. I just forgot what that meant. The command ship and its escort accelerated toward the Devourer collective. The bioships, sensing threat, lashed out with countless tentacles. One by one, the escort ships died, buying meters with their lives. Collective formation at 90%, someone reported. The command ship was close now, damaged but still flying. Rex's voice came over open channels, calm and determined. Attention Devourers. I am Rex Mansouri, human being. You came to consume us, to add our distinctiveness to your own. But we have something you can't digest. Hope, stubbornness, the absolute refusal to go quietly into that good night. Enjoy the meal. The command ship struck the collective center and detonated. For a moment, nothing. Then light, brilliant, terrible, beautiful light. The collective writhed, its formation shattering. Bioships spasmed and died as the antimatter explosion propagated through their shared consciousness. He did it, someone whispered. The crazy bastard actually did it. The remaining devourers, perhaps 30 ships, fled. Not into hyperspace, they simply faded, retreating to whatever dimension they truly inhabited. They're running, Admiral Kresh said, disbelief coloring his voice. We won. We actually won. The celebration was muted. Too many had died, the cost too high for true joy. But they had survived. More than that, they had survived together. Status report, Zara commanded, ever the queen. 40% losses, came the grim tally. But the plague cure is distributed. The devourers are gone, and... The technician paused. Your Majesty, we're receiving signals from across the galaxy. Word of our stand has spread. Systems want to join the Alliance, not as subjects, but as equals. Mason slumped in his chair, exhaustion hitting like a hammer. Kayla sat beside him, equally drained. We did it, she said quietly. Rex did it, Mason corrected. In the end, he chose humanity over evolution, chose sacrifice over survival. He chose friendship, Kayla said. Chose you. That forgiveness you gave him. That's what made him human again. Not Dr. Cross's procedure. Your faith that somewhere inside, he was still the man you knew. They sat in silence, watching the fleet regroup. The Empire would never be the same. The galaxy would never be the same. And perhaps that was the point. Evolution wasn't about becoming superior. It was about becoming better. And better, sometimes, meant choosing to die so others could live. Choosing unity over division. Choosing hope over fear. The human weapon Rex had tried to create through conspiracy and genetics had been there all along, the simple, stubborn, human refusal to abandon each other. And in the end, that had been enough. The peace conference was supposed to be a celebration. 3 weeks had passed since the Devourer threat was repelled, and representatives from across the galaxy had gathered on Jera Prime to formalize the new alliance. The Crystal Palace's Grand Hall overflowed with delegates, former enemies now sitting as equals, planning a future none had imagined possible. Mason stood at the edge of the crowd, uncomfortable in his formal diplomatic attire. The collar itched. The ceremonial weapon at his side was purely decorative, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. You're brooding again, Kayla said, appearing at his elbow with 2 glasses of Jirani wine. I don't brood, I observe with concern. You're literally standing in shadows and glowering at the crowd. It's tactical positioning, Mason protested, accepting the wine. And I'm not glowering. This is my thoughtful face. Kayla laughed, the sound drawing several appreciative glances. In her formal royal attire, with her scars hidden beneath ceremonial paint, she looked every inch the princess. But Mason could see the warrior beneath the way she catalogued exits, kept her weight balanced for quick movement. What's bothering you? She asked quietly. Too quiet, Mason admitted. The program had hundreds of operatives. We've found, 30? Where are the rest? Maybe they ran. Rex's death and the plague cure removed their leverage. Maybe. Mason didn't sound convinced. Or maybe they're waiting. Before Kayla could respond, Queen Jera took the central podium. The crowd fell silent, hundreds of beings from dozens of species turning their attention to the Jirani monarch. Friends, Jera began, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. We gather today not as conqueror and conquered, not as empire and subjects, but as equals. The threat we face together has shown us a fundamental truth. Our diversity is not weakness to be suppressed, but strength to be celebrated. Applause rippled through the crowd. Mason noticed several delegates who seemed less enthusiastic, old guard imperialists who'd profited from the previous system. Today, we sign the Unity Accords, Gera continued. A new foundation for galactic civilization. No longer will the frontier worlds be forgotten. No longer will any species stand alone against threats. Together, we... The explosion shattered the ceremonial atmosphere like a hammer through glass. The palace's eastern wall disappeared in flame and debris. Bodies flew through the air, delegates, guards, servers. The blast wave knocked Mason forward, his combat instincts kicking in instantly. He rolled with the impact, pulling Kayla down and shielding her with his body as shrapnel whistled overhead. Multiple breaches. Someone screamed, "We're under attack!" Through the smoke and chaos, figures in combat armor poured through the breach. They moved with military precision, weapons sweeping for targets. Mason recognized the tactics immediately. Program operatives. The Queen, Kyla, struggled beneath him. "Mother." Mason looked, and his blood froze. Queen Gera lay motionless near the destroyed podium, her wings twisted at unnatural angles. Saren and her guards formed a desperate perimeter around the fallen monarch. But they were outnumbered and outgunned. "Go." Mason shoved Kayla toward a service corridor. "Get to the emergency bunker. I'll get your mother." "I'm not leaving." "That's an order, Princess," Mason snapped, already moving. "Someone needs to survive this, and it's not going to be me arguing with you." He didn't wait for her response. Diving into the chaos. His ceremonial weapon was useless, but a dead guard provided a proper plasma rifle. Mason moved through the smoke like a ghost, muscle memory from 100 battlefields taking over. The attackers were good program-trained, augmented, coordinated, but they'd made one mistake. They'd expected panic, not resistance. They hadn't counted on the new alliance actually meaning something. A Vraxian delegate ripped an attacker in half with their bare claws. Sequence twins flickered in and out of phase, creating confusion in enemy ranks. Even elderly Counselor Yarix fought, her psychic abilities turning attackers against each other. Mason reached Saren's position as another wave of attackers pressed in. "Status!" "The Queen lives, but barely," Saren reported, firing precise shots. "Medical team is cut off. We need to move her." "Negative. Moving her could kill her. We hold here." Mason assessed their position. "Where's Archon Vel?" "Dead," Saren spat. "Killed in his cell an hour ago. Professional job." Cleaning house, Mason realized. The program was eliminating loose ends, which meant, "They're not here to take prisoners," he said. "This is an extermination." As if to emphasize his point, more explosions rocked the palace. Through the growing breaches, Mason saw additional forces deploying. Not just program operatives, mercenaries, pirates, the dregs of galactic civilization united by credits and chaos. "Mason, do you copy?" Kayla's voice crackled through his earpiece. "I told you to get to safety." "I'm in the command center with Admiral Kresh. Palace defenses are compromised. Someone sabotaged the shield generators. But we have bigger problems. Multiple fleets just dropped out of hyperspace. Configuration unknown, but they're not friendly." Of course. The palace attack was just the beginning. Decapitate leadership, sow chaos, then sweep in with overwhelming force. Classic regime change tactics. "Can you get word to the Alliance fleet?" "Already trying. But communications are jammed." "Mason, there's something else. The attackers, some of them are showing biosigns consistent with helix augmentation. Advanced helix. Things even Rex didn't know about." A plasma bolt sizzled past Mason's head, ending the conversation. The attackers had brought up heavy weapons, a crew-served cannon that could punch through their makeshift barricade. "Ideas?" Saren asked, remarkably calm for someone about to die. "One," Mason admitted. You're not gonna like it. I haven't liked anything about today so far. Fair point. Mason checked his rifle's charge. When I move, you grab the Queen and run. Medical bay in the southern wing should still be secure. When you move, where are you? Understanding dawned. That's suicide. That's Tuesday, Mason corrected. Had worse odds on Kepler Station. You didn't have someone to live for then. Mason smiled grimly. Which is why I'm going to survive this. Can't disappoint the princess. Before Saren could protest further, Mason moved, not away from the heavy weapon, but toward it. The gunners, expecting retreat, hesitated for a crucial second. Mason's shots took two of them down before they could react. He rolled behind a fallen column as return fire chewed the marble to dust. Behind him, Saren and two surviving guards carried Queen Zera to relative safety. One objective down, infinity to go. The fight became a blur. Mason moved through the palace halls like death itself, rallying scattered defenders, turning ambush sites into kill boxes. He wasn't trying to win, just buy time. Make the enemy pay for every meter. Mason, Dr. Cross's voice over comms. I'm in the research lab. They're after the plague cure data. If they get it... Understood. Hold position. Mason changed direction, fighting toward the research wing. He found Cross and three technicians barricaded in the lab, program operatives cutting through the door. About time, Cross said as Mason's grenades scattered the attackers. They've been very insistent about killing me. Can't imagine why, Mason grunted, helping reinforce the barricade. You only betrayed their entire organization. Fair point. Mason, they've got someone new leading them. Someone calling themselves the Architect. Even Rex reported to them. Great. Another shadowy mastermind. Mason checked the door. The cutting beam was almost through. Can you destroy the plague data? Already did. But they don't know that. Cross smiled coldly. Which gives us leverage. Before Mason could ask what she meant, the door exploded inward. Operatives poured through, but Cross stepped forward, hands raised. I'll make a deal, she shouted. The plague data for safe passage. The shooting stopped. A figure entered tall, augmented beyond anything Mason had seen. More machine than human, with eyes that glowed with artificial intelligence. Dr. Cross. The figure's voice was modulated, inhuman. The Architect wants you alive. The others are expendable. Then you'd better listen, Cross said. The plague data is quantum encrypted. Kill me, and it's gone forever. But I'll trade. Mason saw the trap too late. Cross's hand moved to her chest, activating something beneath her clothes. The quantum destabilizer Rex had mentioned, a last resort that would take out everything within 50 meters. Everyone down, Mason tackled the nearest technician as reality warped. The explosion wasn't fire and force, but something worse, a bubble of twisted space that simply erased whatever it touched. The Architect figure tried to run, but couldn't escape physics. Half of it simply ceased to exist, the remainder collapsing in sparking ruin. When the distortion faded, Cross lay dying, her body paying the price for wielding such power. Had to, she gasped as Mason reached her. The Architect, not human, AI hybrid, would have extracted the data anyway. Save your strength. No time. Mason, the attack fleets. They're not all program. Some are legitimate governments, powers that want the old system back. The Alliance threatens too much wealth, too much control. She pressed a data chip into his hand. Everything I learned, the real names, the money trails, use it. Cross died with a bitter smile, finally free of the choices that had led her here. Mason pocketed the chip and got the surviving technicians moving. The palace was lost time to retreat and regroup. He guided them through service corridors, avoiding major firefights, until they reached the emergency bunker. The scene inside was controlled chaos. Wounded delegates received treatment, while military officers tried to coordinate defense with jammed communications. Kayla stood at the center, somehow managing to project calm authority, despite the blood on her dress not her own. Mason noted with relief. "Report," she commanded as Mason approached. "Your mother is stable. Dr. Cross is dead, but she took their field commander with her. And I've got intelligence on who's really behind this. Later, right now, we need to break the communication blackout." Kayla turned to Admiral Kresh. "Options?" "Limited," the Vraxian admitted. "But one of the refugee ships has an old quantum transmitter, obsolete by modern standards. But the jamming might not account for deprecated frequencies." "Do it," Kayla ordered. "Mason, I need you to—" The bunker shook as something massive hit the palace shields. Through reinforced windows, they could see the enemy fleet in orbit, a hodgepodge of vessels from various species, united only by greed and fear of change. "Surrender demands incoming," someone reported. "They want all signatories of the Unity Accords delivered for trial. They're calling it a restoration of lawful order." "Lawful," Mason spat. "They mean profitable." "Your Majesty." One of the older delegates stepped forward. Counselor Hex. Mason recalled. "Perhaps negotiation is warranted. Surely some accommodation can be reached." "You mean surrender?" Kayla's voice cut like ice. "Return to the old ways. Forget the frontier worlds again. Pretend the last month never happened." "Better than extinction," Hex argued. "They have the numbers. Fight. And we all die." "Wrong," Mason said quietly. "Fight, and we might die. Surrender, and everything we've built definitely dies. The program, these governments, they're not offering peace. They're offering chains." "The human is right." A new voice spoke, Captain Morak, bleeding from a head wound but still standing. "My people didn't survive 50 years of abandonment to surrender at the first threat. If we die free." Other refugees voiced agreement. Even some military officers nodded. The alliance had been born in fire. It would not yield to threats. "Then we fight," Kayla decided. "But smart. Admiral, that quantum transmitter?" "Signal sent, if any alliance ships are in range." "They're coming," a technician interrupted, excitement breaking through fear. "Multiple jump signatures. It's the frontier fleet." On the display, ships emerged from hyperspace, not the sleek military vessels of the core worlds, but the battered, modified survivors of the frontier. 40 ships became 80, then over 100. Every colony Mason and Kayla had ever helped. Every life saved. Every debt of honor, all repaid in this moment. "Impossible," Hex breathed. "Those ships couldn't coordinate a jump like that." "They couldn't," Kayla smiled. "Until we shared military navigation protocols. Until we treated them as equals. Amazing what people can do when you actually trust them." The enemy fleet, suddenly outnumbered, hesitated. They'd expected easy victory against a decapitated alliance. Instead, they faced the very forces they dismissed as irrelevant. "This is Captain Morak to enemy fleet." The refugee's voice boomed across open channels. "You came for the old guard, the power brokers, the ones who matter. Surprise, we all matter now. You get one chance to withdraw. After that, we stop being nice." "Empty threats from frontier trash," came the sneering response. "We have superior firepower." "You have prettier ships," Morak corrected. "We have experience. 50 years of fighting pirates, raiders, and governments that forgot we existed. Your choice." Mason watched the tactical display, seeing the moment decision crystallized. The enemy fleet's formation shifted. They were going to fight. "All units, defensive pattern Sigma," Admiral Kresh commanded. "Protect the capital. Make them pay for every meter." The battle began in earnest. In space, ships danced their deadly waltz. On the ground, program forces pressed their attack, trying to eliminate Alliance leadership before the naval battle concluded. "We need to retake the palace shields," Kayla said. "Without them, one lucky shot ends everything." "Generator room is 3 levels up," Saren reported. "Heavy resistance expected." "Then we go heavy," Mason decided. Who's still combat capable? A mixed group stepped forward. Jirani guards, human marines, even civilian delegates who'd found weapons. The new alliance made manifest in their determination. "This is insane," Counselor Hex protested. "You're not soldiers." "No," agreed an elderly crystalline delegate, hefting a plasma rifle with surprising ease. "We're citizens, and it's time we acted like it." Mason led them through the bunker's exit, into hell. The palace had become a war zone, bodies everywhere, fires raging, the beautiful architecture reduced to rubble, but also pockets of resistance, defenders who refused to yield. They fought floor by floor, room by room. Mason's group grew as they collected survivors, and shrank as people fell. Through it all, Kayla stayed close, covering his back as he'd covered hers so many times before. "Just like old times," she panted during a brief respite. "Except with more explosions and fewer profit margins," Mason agreed. "I'm starting to miss simple mercenary work." "Liar. You love this fighting for something that matters." "I love you," he corrected. "The noble cause stuff is just a bonus." They reached the generator room to find it held by program elites, the best of the best, augmented beyond recognition. Mason counted 12, all in powered armor, wielding weapons that could punch through a tank. "Ideas?" Saren asked. "Fresh out," Mason admitted. "But when has that ever stopped us?" "Mason Hale," one of the elites spoke, voice mechanically distorted. "The architect has a message for you." "Unless it's I surrender, not interested." "You could have been one of us. Could have helped humanity evolve. Instead, you chose weakness. Chose them." The elite gestured at the mixed species group. "Why?" Mason thought about it for a moment. "Because Rex was wrong. Humanity's strength isn't in what we can take from others. It's in what we can give, what we can build together. You see weakness, I see potential. Then die with your principles." The battle was brutal. Program elites were everything Rex had promised: faster, stronger, harder to kill. But they fought as individuals, perfect soldiers executing perfect tactics. Mason's group fought as something more. When a Jirani guard fell, a human marine grabbed their weapon. When sequence twins phased to avoid fire, they pulled others with them, every species covering for others' weaknesses, amplifying their strengths. It shouldn't have worked. By all logic, the elites should have slaughtered them. But logic didn't account for sacrifice. For the refugee who threw himself on a grenade to save strangers. For the aristocrat who'd never held a weapon before landing a lucky shot at a crucial moment. When the smoke cleared, 8 elites lay dead. The survivors retreated, and Mason's battered force secured the generator room. "Getting power back online," Saren reported, working at the controls. "Shields in 30 seconds. Through the windows, the space battle raged. The frontier fleet fought with desperate creativity, while the enemy tried to maintain disciplined formations. But discipline meant predictability, and the refugees had learned long ago that predictability meant death. "Shields up," Saren announced. Immediately, the tactical situation changed. The palace became a fortress again, its defenses supporting the Alliance fleet. Enemy ground forces, realizing their position had become untenable, began falling back. "They're retreating," someone said, disbelief coloring their voice. "No," Mason corrected, studying the patterns. "They're regrouping. This isn't over." He was right. The enemy fleet disengaged, pulling back beyond weapon range. Ground forces evacuated to dropships, but they didn't flee. They waited. "Incoming transmission," a technician reported. "Wideband, all frequencies." The main screen activated, showing a figure that made Mason's blood run cold. Human in shape, but wrong in every detail, too perfect, too symmetrical. Movements just slightly off. "I am the architect," it spoke. Voice carrying harmonics no human throat could produce. The evolution Rex Mansouri envisioned, perfected, Part human, part AI, part xenogenetic hybrid. The future your alliance seeks to prevent. Abomination, someone muttered. Transcendence, the architect corrected. I offer one final chance. Surrender the alliance leadership. Return to the old ways. Accept the inevitable merging of flesh and machine. Or face extinction. How about option 3? Kayla stepped forward, every inch the queen her mother had raised. We reject your evolution and your extinction. We choose our own path. Then observe the price of defiance. The screen shifted to show a distant world, Kepler colony. Mason recognized with growing horror. One of the first places he and Kayla had saved together. Energy beams lanced down from orbit. Cities burned. The planet itself seemed to scream. No, Kayla's composure cracked. Those are civilians' innocents. The weak, the architect corrected. Those who cannot adapt, cannot evolve. Your alliance protects them, enables their weakness. We simply accelerate natural selection. That's not selection, Mason snarled. That's slaughter. You have 1 hour to surrender. Refuse, and another world burns. Then another. Your precious frontier worlds. One by one. Until you yield, or until none remain. Evolution is inevitable. Mason hail. The only choice is whether your species participates or is replaced. The transmission ended, leaving stunned silence. Can we verify? Someone asked quietly. Long-range sensors confirm, came the devastating reply. Kepler colony, it's gone. 3 billion lives. The weight of it crashed down 3 billion people, killed to make a point. Mason saw the same realization in every face. The enemy wasn't just threatening the alliance. They were threatening genocide. Your Majesty, Counselor Hex spoke again, voice shaking. Surely now we must consider... Consider what? Kayla whirled on him. Surrender. Let those monsters decide who lives and dies, accept their twisted version of evolution. To save lives. To doom them, Mason interrupted. You think the architect will stop at the frontier. This is just the beginning. Give them the alliance, and they'll take everything. Rex created a monster that sees all unaugmented life as obsolete. Then what do? Hex demanded. Fight and watch worlds burn. We do what humans do best, Mason said quietly. We get stubborn. We get creative. And we remind these bastards why humanity survived when we shouldn't have. 1 hour, Saren reminded them. Not much time for miracles. Then we'd better get started, Kayla decided. She turned to the room. Exhaustion and grief clear in her features, but steel in her voice. This is what the old empire would have done: negotiate, compromise, sacrifice the edges to save the core. But we're not the old empire. We're something new, something better, and we're going to prove it. How? Someone asked. Kayla looked at Mason, and he saw the same determination that had carried them through a decade of impossible odds. By doing what they don't expect, she said. By refusing to play their game. Admiral Kresh, can our combined fleet take theirs? In a straight fight, no. They have superior numbers and firepower. Then we don't fight straight, Mason said. Understanding dawning. Cross said some of those ships belong to legitimate governments. They're here for profit and power, not ideology. What happens if that calculation changes? You're suggesting we make it too expensive to continue, Kresh mused. Possible, but risky. Everything's risky now, Kayla pointed out. But if we can split their coalition, turn this from ideology to economics, the frontier fleet captains know every trade route, every resource flow, Captain Morak added, catching on. We make this war bad for business, and half their support evaporates. It wasn't a perfect plan. It wasn't even a good plan, but it was hope, and sometimes that was enough. 45 minutes, Saren announced. Then let's make them count, Mason decided. Your Majesty, if you'll authorize full disclosure of Cross's data. Kayla nodded. do it. Every dirty secret, every financial trail. Let the galaxy see who's really behind this. As the data flooded public channels, exposing the web of corruption behind the attack, Mason allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. The architect wanted evolution through dominance. They were about to learn that humans had evolved something far more dangerous than augmented soldiers. They'd evolved the ability to inspire others to stand when falling would be easier. The throne might be shattered, the old order broken, but from the pieces, something stronger was emerging, something worth fighting for. The countdown ticked towards zero as Mason and his team raced through the palace's ruined data center. 20 minutes until the architect's ultimatum expired. 20 minutes to prevent another genocide. There, Saren pointed to a secured terminal, still somehow functioning. If Cross's data is accurate, we can access the old Imperial communication logs from here. Do it, Mason ordered, then turned to Kayla. You sure about this? Queen Jera's personal codes are the only ones that can unlock those files, Kayla said, her mother's command seal heavy in her hand. If what Rex said about my supposed death is true, the proof will be here. While Saren worked, Mason coordinated with the fleet. The enemy coalition held position, waiting for their surrender, but cracks were already showing. 3 merchant vessels had quietly powered down weapons after the financial exposures went public. 2 mercenary companies were demanding renegotiation of their contracts. Got it, Saren announced, accessing files from 10 years ago, the week of Princess Kayla's last mission. The screen filled with data communication logs, order authentications, tactical plans. And there, buried in routine military traffic, the smoking gun. My God, Kayla breathed. Mother did order my death. The command was clear, authenticated with Queen Jera's personal seal. Sacrifice the princess to prevent civil war. Make it look like enemy action. Ensure the Empire's stability at any cost. But look at this. Saren highlighted another section. The order was modified after authentication. Someone changed the parameters, made it messier, more brutal. Well, Mason concluded. He took your mother's pragmatic decision and turned it into an opportunity. She ordered her own daughter's death? Kayla's voice was hollow. To save billions from civil war, Mason said gently. Not saying it was right, but I understand the logic. The Empire was fracturing. Your death united them against a common enemy. The needs of the many, Kayla quoted bitterly. Except it didn't work, Saren observed. The corruption just went deeper. The frontier worlds still suffered. All that sacrifice bought was 10 more years of decline. An alarm chimed, 15 minutes. We can use this, Mason said suddenly. The truth, all of it. You want to broadcast that the Queen ordered her own daughter killed? Saren asked, incredulously. I want to broadcast that the old system was so broken, it demanded such sacrifices. Mason corrected. That even good people like Jera made monstrous choices because the Empire left no room for anything else. Kayla understood immediately. And now we offer an alternative. Not the architect's forced evolution, not the old Empire's calculated sacrifices, but something new. 10 minutes, someone called out. Broadcast it, Kayla decided. Everything. Let the galaxy see what the old ways really cost. As the data flooded public channels, reactions were immediate. On the enemy fleet, more ships powered down weapons. The coalition was hemorrhaging support as species realized they were fighting to preserve a system that had betrayed even its own royalty. Incoming transmission from the architect, a technician reported. The inhuman figure appeared on screen, its perfect features now showing signs of anger. Clever, but exposing old sins won't save the world I'm about to destroy. 5 minutes. Princess, surrender or watch billions burn. There's a third option, Mason said, stepping forward. Single combat, you and me. Winner takes all. The architect tilted its head, an unnaturally smooth motion. Primitive. Why would I accept such terms? Because you're proud, Mason said simply. You see yourself as evolution perfected. Prove it. Face a baseline human. No augmentations, no advantages. Show the galaxy that your way is superior. Mason, no. Kayla grabbed his arm. You can't. I can, he said quietly. This is what I do, Princess. I find the impossible odds and beat them through sheer stubbornness. The architect considered, intriguing, but I choose the venue. The ruins of the throne room. 2 minutes. The transmission ended. This is insane, Saren protested. That thing will tear you apart. Probably, Mason agreed, checking his weapons. But it'll buy time, and time is what we need. For what? Kayla demanded. Mason smiled, the expression sharp and dangerous. For you to do what you do best. Unite people. Show them there's something worth fighting for beyond fear and profit. They reached the throne room, or what remained of it. The explosion had torn the heart from the palace, leaving a cratered ruin open to the sky. At its center stood the architect, no longer appearing by hologram, but physically present. Up close, its wrongness was even more apparent. Too tall. Joints that bent in too many directions. Skin that shifted between organic and synthetic. Mason Hale, it spoke, voice carrying despite the wind. The human who chose weakness. Rex spoke of you often. Such disappointment in his reports. Rex chose wrong until he chose right, Mason replied, stepping into the makeshift arena. That's what being human means. The ability to change, to grow, to choose differently. Semantics. Evolution is not choice. It is inevitability. Then let's test that theory. The architect moved faster than anything that size should. Mason barely dodged the first strike, augmented muscles driving a fist through where his head had been. The second attack came before he could fully recover a sweep that caught his legs, sending him rolling. Pathetic, the architect observed. This is what you defend, this weakness. Mason came up firing, plasma bolts splashing harmlessly against some kind of personal shield. Of course the thing had defenses. He dove aside as return fire turned his position to slag. Around them, crowds gathered, palace defenders, civilians, even some enemy soldiers who'd abandoned their posts to witness this ancient form of conflict resolution. And beyond them, Kayla worked frantically with the communication equipment, broadcasting everything. People of the galaxy. Her voice carried across all frequencies. You're watching evolution versus choice, perfection versus humanity. The architect offers you one path: surrender your identity, become part of its grand design. But there's another way. Mason rolled under another attack, came up swinging. His combat knife found a gap in the architect's defenses, drawing thick black blood. The creature actually looked surprised. Impossible! Your reflexes are baseline human. Wrong, Mason panted. They're experienced human. 20 years of fighting things stronger than me. You know what I learned. Perfect beings make perfect mistakes. He pressed the attack, not trying to win, just survive, just buy time. Every dodge drew gasps from the crowd. Every small wound he inflicted sparked hope. The frontier worlds. Kayla continued broadcasting. Know about survival, about adaptation without losing yourself. The refugees among us prove that strength comes not from perfection, but from perseverance. Not from taking, but from giving. The architect caught Mason's arm, twisted. The snap of breaking bone echoed across the ruins. Mason screamed, but didn't fall, using the creature's grip to drive his knee into its midsection. More black blood. You cannot win, the architect stated. Accept the inevitable. Humans don't do inevitable. Mason gasped. We do impossible. We do stubborn. We do together. He gestured with his good arm at the crowd. Look at them. Different species. Different worlds. All watching a human get his ass kicked. And you know what? They're not seeing weakness. They're seeing someone who won't quit. someone who believes the future is worth bleeding for. The architect paused, perhaps processing this illogical behavior. That pause cost it. Mason's hidden pistol, Rex's pistol, taken from his former friend's effects, cleared its holster and fired point blank. The neural disruptor round, designed specifically for program augmentations, sent the architect staggering. Not a killing blow, but enough to break its concentration. "Now," Mason shouted. From concealed positions around the throne room, Alliance forces opened fire. Not at the architect, at the hidden program operatives who'd been moving into position during the fight. The single combat had been a distraction, allowing Alliance forces to identify and target the real threat. The architect roared, an inhuman sound of rage and betrayal. "Deception, trickery." "Adaptation," Mason corrected, backing away. "Something you forgot in your quest for perfection. Humans lie, cheat, misdirect. It's how we survived when we were the weakest species on our own planet. It's how we'll survive you." But the architect wasn't finished. Its form began to shift, revealing the true horror of program augmentation, pushed to its limit. Extra limbs burst from its torso. Its skin hardened into armor. What had been merely unsettling became nightmarish. "Then I will show you evolution unrestrained," it snarled. The battle escalated beyond anything Mason could handle alone. But he didn't need to. Saren and her guards engaged from one side, refugee fighters from another, even some surrendered enemy soldiers, perhaps remembering their own humanity, joined the fight. "Together," Kayla commanded, her broadcast reaching every corner of the battlefield. Not as subjects of Empire, not as perfect soldiers, but as people who choose to stand. The architect fought with inhuman power, but it fought alone. Every ally it might have had was dead, fled, or switching sides. The very perfection it embodied had isolated it from the connections that made civilization possible. Mason, arm useless, watched from the sidelines as the galaxy united against a common threat. Not the unity of fear the old Empire had fostered, not the unity of force the program demanded, but unity of choice. "Incoming ships," someone shouted. It's everyone." The sky filled with vessels not just military, but civilian transports, cargo haulers, private yachts. The financial exposures had done more than fracture the enemy coalition. They'd sparked something unprecedented. Ordinary citizens, seeing the truth, had chosen to act. The architect, wounded by dozens of attacks, stood in the center of the ruined throne room. Its perfect form was scarred, bleeding, failing. "This proves nothing," it gasped. "Evolution continues. Others will take my place. Humanity will adapt or perish." "Maybe," Mason agreed, supported by Kayla as she reached his side. "But it'll be our choice how we adapt. Not yours. Not anyone's but ours." "The old Empire is dead," Kayla added. "What comes next? We build together. All of us." The architect laughed, a sound like grinding gears. "Together. Such a human concept. Very well. Learn what together truly costs." Its hand moved to its chest, to a device Mason recognized with growing horror. A dead man's switch. "Quantum bombs in 12 major population centers," the architect whispered. "My death triggers them all. Evolution's final lesson. Even victory has a price. Choose, princess. Let me leave, or condemn billions to death." The crowd fell silent. After everything, to face such a choice. "No!" Queen Jera's voice rang out. The monarch, recovered enough to stand with assistance, entered the ruins. "No more sacrifices. No more calculated losses. Saren, can you disarm it?" Saren studied the device. "Not in time. The signal will transmit faster than I can work." "Then we need another solution," Jera said. She looked at her daughter, and Mason saw a lifetime of regret in that gaze. "I'm sorry, Kayla, for everything, for choosing empire over family, for becoming the kind of ruler who could order her own daughter's death. Mother, let me finish. Zhera moved closer to the architect. You want to leave, take me. Royal hostage. Worth more than any bomb. But you disarm the devices first. Mother, no. Kayla started forward, but Mason held her back with his good arm. Wait, he murmured, seeing something in Zhera's stance. The architect considered. Acceptable. Disarm code transmitting. Done. Now, Your Majesty. Zhera moved faster than her injuries should have allowed. The ceremonial blade hidden in her wing sliced through the architect's throat, even as its augmented reflexes responded. Both figures fell, tangled in mutual destruction. Mother Kayla broke free, rushing to Zhera's side. The queen lay dying, the architect's final strike having found its mark. But she smiled, reaching up to touch her daughter's face. My real daughter would have done the same, she whispered. Protect the innocent. Choose others over yourself. I forgot that, lost it in the need to preserve power. But you remembered. You and your stubborn human. Don't talk, Kayla pleaded. Medical team. No. Zhera's voice was fading. This is right. The old empire dies with me. What you build it better. Promise me. I promise, Kayla sobbed. Queen Zhera smiled one last time, then was still. The silence that followed was profound. An empire had ended. A threat had been defeated. And the galaxy stood at a crossroads. Your Majesty, Admiral Kresh spoke formally, addressing Kayla. The throne is yours by right. Kayla stood slowly, her mother's blood on her hands. She looked at the ruined throne room, at the mixed crowd of species, at Mason nursing his broken arm. No, she said firmly. The throne died with my mother, with the architect, with the old ways. She raised her voice, addressing everyone present and broadcasting to the galaxy beyond. I am not your queen. I am not your ruler. I am a citizen of something new. Something we'll build together. Then what do we do? Someone asked. How do we organize? How do we govern? We learn, Kayla said simply. We make mistakes. We grow. We choose, every day, to be better than we were. Not through forced evolution or calculated sacrifice, but through the simple act of giving a damn about each other. She turned to Mason. Starting with fixing that arm. Can't have my partner fighting one-handed. Partner, Mason repeated, smiling through the pain. I like the sound of that. The weeks that followed were chaos, but productive chaos. The Unity Accords were rewritten, not as a treaty between powers, but as a constitution for something unprecedented, a galactic democracy, where every world, no matter how small, had a voice. The program's quantum bombs were located and disarmed. The plague cure was distributed freely. War criminals were tried, but with justice tempered by mercy. Even former enemies were offered the chance to help build something better. Mason and Kayla didn't lead. They advised, mediated, and occasionally knocked heads together when old prejudices surfaced. But mostly, they watched as people who'd been enemies learned to work together, as the frontier worlds finally got the resources they'd needed, as civilization rebuilt itself on a foundation of choice rather than force. Any regrets? Mason asked one evening, as they watched the sunset from a balcony in the new council chambers, built where refugees and citizens wanted it, not where tradition demanded. About not being queen none, Kayla replied. About my mother. Many. But she made her choice at the end. The right choice. The human choice, Mason suggested. Maybe that's what evolution really means, Kayla mused. Not becoming something other than what we are, but becoming the best version of ourselves. Together. A communication alert chimed. Another crisis somewhere. Another problem to solve. But also another opportunity to prove that unity wasn't just a word, but a practice. Ready? Kayla asked. With you always, Mason replied. They walked back inside, side by side, to face whatever came next. Not as rulers or weapons, but as citizens of something new, something better, something revolutionary in its simplicity, people choosing to stand together when standing alone would be easier. The old empire was dead. The program's forced evolution had failed. But from their ashes, something extraordinary grew. Not perfect, not without problems, but alive with possibility. And at its heart, a simple truth Rex had discovered too late. But Mason and Kayla had always known the greatest strength wasn't in taking from others, but in lifting them up. Not in perfection, but in connection. Not in evolution forced, but in revolution chosen. Together, they faced the future uncertain but unafraid, scarred but not broken, human in all the ways that mattered. The revolution had begun, and it looked like hope.